In today's episode, I'm creating a personalized keychain using products from JudiKins, Activa, and Etching. Let's get started.
First step is to etch the glass cabochon. I'm using one with a rounded top and a flat back. I'm using Etching cream to create a monogram on the glass cabochon. I'm using Etching's designer tip kit and Etching cream, which I placed into the bottle, and then chose one of the delicate tips to do my handwriting on the cabochon. One tip is to place a pin inside the designer tip on the kit, and that way it won't dry and it's ready to use next time. I just squeeze out a little bit to be sure I don't have any air bubbles at this point, and then it's time to freehand draw the initial on the glass cabochon. I'm drawing it on the rounded side. We're going to put that aside for 15 minutes to let the Etching cream do its magic on the cabochon. I'm using Lumina clay from Activa products. It is an air dry product, and you simply remove the outside plastic packaging and it's soft and ready to use. And I'm going to roll it out. Roll it to a little less than 1/4 inch thick. I used my clay cutter to determine how much of the clay I was going to use, and then went ahead and cut away the extra and put it back in the package to use for another project. Lumina is slightly translucent when dry, and it gets a bit of a off-white tone to it. I wanted to add some color, and to do that I'm using mica powders in the shades of a peacock feather. You could use a paintbrush to do this, but I like to use my fingers. I feel like I get a little more control and I can press a little more to make sure that color gets into the clay where I want it to be. Next, ink JudiKins Swirly Feather Stamp with a permanent ink pad. I'm using a pigment pad, but you could use a dye-based as long as it's a permanent ink, and impress it into the clay. You want to do this before the clay dries because I wanted the actual texture of the stamp to transfer along with the image. Determined where the placement needed to be, and then give it a good firm press to transfer that texture in the image. I did let my ink dry a bit before I went to the next step. Now, if you place plastic wrap over the clay before you cut it, you get a great rounded edge. Once it's cut, go ahead and use those same mica powders to color the sides and the back of the piece before the clay dries. Use a clay tool or a toothpick to make a hole near the top. You want a hole big enough to hold your keychain once the piece is dry. Now we have our etched cabochon. I washed off the cream. You could have returned it to the bottle. Etchol is reusable, which is another great feature of it, but this was such a small amount, I just washed it free. And you can see the monogram is etched into the surface of the cabochon. It's very subtle. To mount the cabochon, I'm using a touch of a permanent clear drying adhesive and place it right onto the center of that feather, the eye of the feather, and then place the cabochon with the monogram facing the proper direction and give it a good press. We want to inset it a bit into that clay before the clay dries. Now the Lumina clay is dry. It does still remain flexible though, so that even though the piece is fairly thin, it's not going to break apart, etc. with use. I wanted to seal my color a bit without adding any gloss, so I'm just using a matte finish spray sealer for this. I took it outside and sprayed it, let it dry and flipped it and sprayed the other side. Then it's time to simply add the key ring and you're ready to use your keychain.
We hope you're enjoying our personal style series sponsored by Activa, Etchol, and JudiKins. Please follow us on social media and sign up on our website and you're automatically entered to win one of our prize packages full of products from our sponsors. And as we always say, when creativity knocks, open the door.